Hey everyone. So a personal question for me, which is also obviously a much, much bigger question. Hi Claire, I'm wondering what I should look for when I choose a spiritual teacher. In theory, if someone is enlightened, then they are living life from love and abundance and should therefore have everything they want. Can I ask about your own personal life? Would you say that you have everything you want? And if not, why should I listen to what you say? Because this is obviously not working for you. Good question. So it's two questions. I think this is how do we choose teachers? How do we choose who to listen to, who to hang out with, who to have guidance from? And another enormous question about getting what we want. So let's do the first one first. How to choose a teacher. There's only one way, I would say. Two ways, two things to look for, I would say. The first is, regardless of the teacher, regardless of my life, as a listener, regardless of what I'm wanting, does what the teacher is saying ring true? And this is really hard actually, because particularly when we're in child mode, when we're feeling insecure, we're suffering, we're anxious, we're depressed, we're feeling hopeless, and we're desperate really to find the thing that's going to make everything all right. In a way, really, we're desperate to find the parent that is going to fix everything. And we can look for that in our relationships, in our careers, with our bosses and colleagues. So in the moments of crisis, when we're looking for a teacher who's going to lead us out of the crisis, excuse me, we're sort of fundamentally uncritical. That's when we're our most vulnerable, I would say, to manipulation, to sort of false gurus, to false gods, to gaslighting, to abuse. We're desperate, and it will show up in our relationships all over the place. And that's problematic. And we'll look at that in the second part of this question, because really what we want to be in a state of is critical, intelligent, logical analysis. Does what the person is saying make sense? Is it logical? Is it does it resonate deep within to my sort of deepest inner critic, inner integrity? Is there a fundamental truth in it? And we don't even mean truth at a surface level. We mean when the whole mind goes back into the sort of subconscious realm, checks things out there, and comes back. Does it come back with an inner yes? Or is there like really fundamentally underneath all of this an inner no? There is something to not trust in this. There is something that doesn't make sense. There's something that doesn't sound true. So that's an enormous area, and as I see it, that whole area cleans up more and more as the child is less and less in charge of this whole thing, and as the child heals through parenting that child by the truth of us, not through some guru or some imbalanced relationship, but from the truth of us, the consciousness, the presence, the intelligence of what we are, really what we are, allowing that child, understanding that child, of healing it, dissolving it, really, the ego, which is the fractured child. As that happens, then we're more and more in the form, in reality, less deluded, less seeking, desperation. And now we can really analyze, does this make sense, what this person's saying? So awesome. That's the first thing. And then the second thing I would say is definitely look at the teacher's life. Definitely. Do they live in a way that matches what they're talking about? And I've moved away from teachers in the past that might be talking about love and wholeness and oneness, but in their interactions are really not loving, bullying, duplicitous. It's hard. It's really hard, but it also shows where we've blindly given our attention, given our commitment, our sort of fellowship, and it just doesn't. It's not consistent. There are huge disparities in the words and the behavior, and so 100% look at the way the teacher behaves, because particularly in spiritual non-dual conversations, it allows for enormous bypass. With so much can just be pushed to one side because nothing's real. It's all a dream. You don't have to work on relationships. You don't have to own your own nonsense when you can dismiss the existence even of any other. So, and that, that just is ridiculous to me, really. Like, if anything, if this conversation does anything, it holds the mind body system, the behavior, the reactions to account, and says, does all of this match up with these nice words? And that's for all of us to really get still with, in ourselves above all initially, and then in the people that we listen to. So those two things I would say are critical. Now, personal question: do I have everything I want in my life? Obviously not. And I've written about it, but in a way, yes, we all do, because do I have what I want? Like, do I have the exact amount of money, the perfect relationships, the health, the appearance, the career, the success? Do I have all of that to a level of what I want in order to secure this sense of me as a separate identity? No, none of us has that. There is no amount of anything that is going to secure that sense of me as separate. So from that, the logical next step is to see that actually everything we have, including the rejections, the obstacles, the illnesses, the conflicts, the losses, the griefs, all of it is wanted at a fundamental level, because it's through these experiences in which the identity is fundamentally challenged that that the truth emerges. It's only in these experiences, and so in terms of enlightenment, it's found in every place in which the idea of me that is trying to control, that is trying to secure these things, that's trying to avoid, is fundamentally put on the spot, and the whole interrogation now becomes, what do I really want? And it's a nice example because it does two things. It really it forces clarification. What is really wanted here? And it forces a look at our own behavior, which is what I was talking about earlier. So for example, in the book, It's Not You and It's Not Me, I wrote about being rejected by a guy that I really liked. And in that moment, which was awful, awful, like the whole system in like freezing, like literally could feel the everything freezing, protection drawbridges coming up, feeling like death, feeling like the fundamental basis of safety and security being completely rocked. In that moment, the question, what do I really want? It forces this congruency, because I could say I'm upset. I'm beyond upset now because I want this guy. Oh, sorry. I love him. I want him. You know, we could have this amazing future together. But really, he's telling me he doesn't want this. And yet I'm in the name of loving him, in the name of wanting him, I'm trying to get him to have, like, force him, control him to be with me, which is not what he wants. And so I don't really want him, do I? If I really cared about him, and we can translate this into any situation really, I would want for him what he wants. I mean, it's so simple, it's so basic, and yet in that survival mode, in the child screaming, tantruming, it gets so lost. I don't want him. I want something else. I want this stability of ego. I want the characters from my past to not ever leave me. I want a sense of the guaranteed future. Got nothing to do with him. So the question, Claire, do you have everything that you want, is a brilliant question, and it's one for all of us, because it forces congruency and integrity and honesty about what is really wanted. And then the second thing, which if our spiritual teachers aren't doing this, they are not our spiritual teachers, is it forces a look at our own behavior. Because the whole mind-body system in form, in a world of form, is about learning and feedback. And what prevents learning and feedback is when learning and feedback is too terrifying for the ego identity. It cannot cope with it, because it can't deal with that level of, it becomes self-blame, and I'm so wrong, and I can't do this right, and I'll never have a good relationship. That's just more and more ego. It's more and more identity. But when there's confrontation, when we go into that survival mode, when it looks like there's something that we want that we're not getting, it says, let's see what our behavior is. Let's really get really still with that. How is the behavior keeping in place the patterns, the things that we try to avoid? And by looking at our own behavior, by full accountability for it, which can easily go out the window in a conversation about no reality. But in allowing attention to be on the learning process, on the feedback process, then the whole body mind is exiting those learned patterns from the past, and moves into a whole other arena of possibility. Not in any of it it's going to stabilize the idea of me, not as an ego boost, but as a dissolution of the ego, and an increase in the capacity of the body mind to be effective in the world, to orientate in relationships, to increasingly align the function and the form with the basis of truth that we're discovering. So, do we all have what we want? Yes, in a way, because the resistance to it, the fight against it, the flight from it is showing there is richness here, both in terms of the depth of understanding of what we are, and the healing of the child, and then in terms of changing of behavior, a level of information coming in that was blocked off before. Yeah, and that's it for the rest of our lives, isn't it? So it's not ever going to be the case that at that superficial level of ego identity, trying to fix and secure itself through control and bringing in, securing what it needs and pushing out what it can't face. When no one's ever going to have that, and disaster for us when we do, really. Yeah. So I I hope that's okay. Yeah, thank you for the question. Bye.